Nyctography, the special toe, the ones who came down by the sky descent myth mystery. In southern Ethiopia, the Surma people tell a story about a god named Tuma, who opened a hole in the clouds and lowered their ancestors to earth on ropes. In Nigeria, the Yoruba tell a story about a god named Oduduwa, who descended from the heavens on a chain, carrying a handful of sand and a single chicken to build the ground beneath our feet. In Japan, the imperial line traces itself back to a god named Ninigi, who climbed down an unbroken ladder from the sky to find the line of emperors. In Zulu tradition, it's a being called Unkulunkulu. In Egypt, it's the goddess Nut, arching over the earth, giving birth to the sun every single morning. None of these people ever met each other, separated by oceans, by thousands of years, by every possible barrier to communication, and they all arrived at strikingly similar answers to the same question. Something came down from the sky, and that's where we began. Why does that keep happening? This isn't a question with an easy answer, and it isn't one this video is going to pretend to solve. What it is one of the strangest, most genuinely unresolved patterns in the entire study of human history. A mystery that isn't about a missing person or a haunted building or a case file. It's about something bigger. It's about whether every human culture on Earth was, in some sense, having the same idea at the same time without ever comparing notes. Let's lay out the pattern properly first, because it's more consistent than most people realize. In Greek mythology, the gods descend from Olympus to walk among mortals, take human form, and shape the outcomes of wars. In Norse mythology, the gods cross a rainbow bridge called Bifrost to move between their world and ours. In Hindu tradition, Indra rules the sky and wields a thunderbolt, in almost the exact same role Zeus plays for the Greeks and Jupiter plays for the Romans, three completely separate civilizations, arriving independently at the idea of a sky ruler who commands lightning as a symbol of divine authority. In West Africa, the Dogon people of Mali have a body of traditional knowledge about the star system Sirius that some researchers have found difficult to fully explain given the star's dimness to the naked eye, a detail that's been debated for decades and that we'll come back to. There's a real academic field built entirely around studying this pattern. It's called comparative mythology, and the honest mainstream explanation researchers have developed doesn't require anything otherworldly at all. Human beings everywhere on Earth look up at the same sky. We all see the sun rise and set. We all watch storms roll in from somewhere above us, out of our control, more powerful than anything on the ground. Psychologist Carl Jung proposed that certain images, and a sky father, a descent from above, a bringer of knowledge, are what he called archetypes, patterns so basic to the human experience that they surface independently in every culture, the same way every culture independently develops some version of a flood myth or a story explaining why people speak different languages. There's a second explanation too, one anthropologists debate constantly: diffusion. Trade routes, migrations, and contact between ancient civilizations were more extensive than people often assume. Stories genuinely did travel, get retold, and blend together as they cross from one culture into another over centuries. For neighboring or connected civilizations, some of these parallels probably aren't independent invention at all. They're just a good story spreading the way stories do. But diffusion has limits. It doesn't explain why isolated cultures, separated by literal oceans with no plausible route of contact for thousands of years, arrived at remarkably similar core imagery anyway: a sky, a barrier, and something that crosses it to shape human life below. This is where a separate, much more controversial theory enters the picture, and it's worth naming directly because you've likely heard of it. In the 1960s, an author named Eric von Däniken popularized what's called the ancient astronaut theory, the idea that these myths aren't metaphor or archetype at all, but folk memory of literal extraterrestrial visitors misunderstood by ancient people as gods. It's a theory that spawned documentaries, books, and an entire cable television franchise. It's also a theory that mainstream archaeology and anthropology reject almost unanimously, and for good reason. There's no physical, archaeological, or biological evidence supporting extraterrestrial contact with any ancient civilization. Not one confirmed artifact, not one verified structure that required technology beyond what we know these cultures possessed. The theory tends to work by starting with a conclusion and reading it backward into myths that, examined on their own terms, are usually well understood within each culture's own belief system without needing an outside explanation at all. So here's where that actually leaves us, and it's a stranger place than either it's aliens or it's nothing. The mystery isn't whether beings really came down from the sky. They almost certainly didn't, not in any literal sense. The real, still unresolved mystery is this: Why did human beings independently all over the world, across every era of recorded history, keep reaching for the exact same story to explain where we came from? Why has something crossed the barrier between sky and earth and that's how we began? One of the most common ideas any civilization has ever had, completely on its own. Maybe it says something about how small we feel under an open sky everywhere on earth in every era. Maybe it's simply what a mind does with the biggest question it can't answer, looking up because there's nowhere else left to look. We don't have a clean answer for you tonight. This is one of those rare stories where the mystery isn't a case that could still be solved with better evidence. It's a pattern in the human mind itself, one we may never fully explain, because explaining it would mean fully explaining why we tell stories at all. Next time, another file, another name worth remembering.